to this meeting of the Transportation and Bikeways Advisory Committee, community meeting on Beach Road. My name is Peter Allgaier, the chair, and we'll go around and introduce the members of the committee. Start with
Griffin Ryder.
I'm Calvin Sutton. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works for the Town of Orleans.
George Meservy, Planning Director.
Stephanie Gaskill.
Bob McDonald.
Joel Porton.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you all for coming out this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to obtain initial, and I really want to emphasize the word initial, community feedback on the May 2024 town meeting decision to fund a feasibility study for a possible multi-use path from the village center to Nauset Beach. And this evening, we'll really only be focusing on the part from Barley Neck Road to Nauset Beach. The format is, I'd like to read the warrant and the warrant explanation so we all understand the context in which what we're trying to address here. And then I will ask Josh Cohn-Rohde, who is from VHB Engineering, who has been contracted by the town to conduct this feasibility study. So he will start off by giving a presentation of the initial cut, if I'll use that word, of a feasibility study. And then we will seek community reactions, suggestions, issues for consideration, which will be recorded on these flip charts over here. So we do expect there to be further community meetings, and before we would submit any advice to the select board. And I want to emphasize, we are not the deciders. We are an advisory committee, and we want to provide the best possible advice to the select board. And so that's why, and we seek your help to do that. So once we have Josh's presentation, we would ask people to come in sequence to the mic, make your comments, and please identify yourself and where you live. And so then we will record all of this, and we will benefit from your views on this issue. So, I guess we will.
Are you going to read the article?
Oh, I got to read the article. Yeah, it's right here. Sorry. All right, so this was Article 33 at the May 2024 town meeting. The warrant was to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $85,000 or any other sum for the purpose of funding a feasibility study for a multi-use pathway along Beach Road from Main Street to Nauset Beach, including all expenses incidental and related thereto, or to take other action relative thereto. Okay, but let me read the explanation that goes with the warrant, which I think is more telling as to what our frame of reference is here this evening. So the explanation that was printed in the warrant says, Beach Road is the main access to Nauset Beach, a premier summer destination. Many residents and visitors walk or bicycle to the beach, but the limited shoulder does not provide for safe passage. As a complete streets community, Orleans has made a commitment to designing its roads to accommodate all users. The article will fund a feasibility study of a shared use path. A base map will be prepared and up to 4 alternative designs will be developed for public review and consideration. The concepts will consider right-of-way requirements, stone walls and trees, utility pole relocation, and existing infrastructure, culverts, driveways, etc. A final report will become the basis for moving forward with design and construction to allow pedestrians and bicyclists to safely access Nauset Beach. So I think you can tell, I hope you can tell from this warrant article that this is just the very beginning. So we appreciate you being here at this early stage. We will need further community input, but we wanted to get started at this point. So with that in mind, if I could ask Josh to introduce us to your program, to your,
Peter, can I just make one comment before Josh
Absolutely,
starts?
yeah.
So just for the public, Josh is going to present two different options tonight. These are by no means the only two options that are out there. We wanted to present these two options to get feedback from the community, to get an idea on what the community feels is viable and what the community doesn't feel is viable. So, by no means are these intended to be all of the options that are out there. And we've got the ability to develop more options out of this. But we really want to get some constructive feedback on, what elements that you may like and what elements that you don't like. So then hopefully we can come together and develop a plan that has a general consensus to it. So I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Okay, Josh?
All right, thank you everybody for joining us here tonight. Quick agenda, it's kind of outlined, but we'll just restate some of the goals and purpose of this project, the project limits, the existing roadway that's out there, what we have looked at so far from a complete street evaluation and the two alternatives we've gone into depth with so far, and then what the next steps are for the feasibility study moving forward from tonight. So these were all kind of stated in the warrant, so I can just fly through these quickly. But the project goals were kind of evaluate improving multimodal travel along Beach Road, make Beach Road more walkable and bikeable, improve safety for all users, minimize impacts to residential properties and utilities. And then we're here tonight to gather community input from all of you guys in the audience and online to kind of help frame our feasibility study moving forward and the recommendations that the committee would be making to the select board. So just as you guys are probably familiar with, the limits of this is about 1.5 miles, starts at the intersection of Main Street and Barley Neck Road, along Beach Road, all the way down to Nauset Beach, including past the parking lot that was constructed a few years ago. So kind of what we've done so far to get to this point tonight, meeting with all of you. So back in January of last year, we did a site visit, walked along the corridor, got a lot of pictures and got some mapping of the existing constraints. And for consideration, those were utility poles, got some measurements of the roadway, any steep drop-offs along the side of the roadway, any private property that's close to the roadway, landscaping, walls, just kind of documenting where all those are along the roadway. And then we used that and drafted these two initial alternatives through May of last year, sent those in, they got looked at a little bit, and then in November I was here as well at one of the Transportation and Bike Advisory Committee meetings, gave a very similar presentation to this. And at that meeting, it was decided that we wanted to have a nighttime meeting to seek additional community input from everybody. And that's where we are tonight. So we are by no means at the conclusion of this feasibility study. We haven't prepared the final document and submitted it yet. We're here kind of as like a midpoint to say this is what we've looked at so far, this is what we found, and to seek input on how to kind of move forward from here. So as far as the existing roadway goes, there are two 11-foot travel lanes out there, one in each direction. And those are pretty consistent in width throughout the entire length of the road. And then the shoulders are about 3 to 4 feet. Sometimes those pinch down where there's a little overgrowth from the landscaping on the sides. But generally speaking, they're about 3 to 4 feet along the roadway. That all adds up to about 30 feet of existing roadway. So currently there's no sidewalk or bike lanes. As I'm sure all of you have seen out there, there's some signs directing peds and bikes about how to kind of use the shoulders and separate themselves for vehicles. but it's a pretty tight, uncomfortable situation for bikes and peds out there. And it's probably not great for cars when you guys, people in cars, approach those bikes or peds either. And a little note with this roadway is that the right-of-way was not laid out, so the town layout is assumed to be at the edge of the existing pavement. So when we talk about property impacts in this feasibility study, that starts at the existing edge of pavement and goes back. So those numbers, so a property impact is anything that would widen off the existing roadway. So the alternatives we evaluated, we had put in up to 4, and we really narrowed down to 2, working with the committee towards the beginning of this study. So those 2 alternatives that we have kind of laid out so far and evaluated were alternative 2 and alternative 3. So alternative 2, and I have graphics in the PowerPoint, and I also have these boards for people in the room behind me. Alternative 2 was on-road bike lanes and a sidewalk on the south side of the road. Alternative 3 was a shared use path on the south side of the road with a grass buffer between the roadway and that shared use path. Both of those included a Cape Cod pavement berm, separating the travel lane from those pedestrian or bike and pedestrian accommodations. And both those included narrowing down the travel lanes to 10.5 feet to limit the width of the alternatives as much as possible. We'd also eliminated an alternative right from the beginning, which was 5-foot on-road bike lanes with a granite curb and a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side. Just based on initial feedback that we got from the Transportation Bike Committee, as well as on previous studies that we've done on Main Street and Old Colony Road, it doesn't seem like granite curb was something that the town was interested in pursuing. They preferred the more HMA asphalt type berms, so we eliminated that alternative right at the beginning. And then some of the other alternatives that we could evaluate as part of this pending input is a more of a hybrid approach where you kind of change some of these widths of either the shared use path or the buffer in certain locations to kind of limit impacts as much as possible. And then relocating of utility poles to try to balance or reduce the impacts. Along this roadway, the utility poles generally run along the north side. There's about a 4 to 5 foot offset from the utility poles to the roadway. When we laid out these alternatives, we were trying to avoid the relocation of those utility poles as much as possible because utility relocations can be expensive. They can take a while in construction. So when possible, we try to kind of eliminate those utility pole relocations. And then the third alternative, that a possible additional alternative we could evaluate, and this is not a comprehensive list either, but this came out at the November meeting, was possibly trying to reduce the travel lanes, the shoulders, and then just add a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway and try to stay within that 30 feet of existing roadway as much as possible. So again, we haven't laid that concept out, so we haven't evaluated what the impacts like that for that concept are, but it's just an additional alternative that kind of came out of that November meeting for potential analysis. So some of the noted concerns out there that we saw when we did our field walk was obviously the numerous amount of driveways. I think there's about 53 properties on the south side of the road and about 50 properties on the north side of the road. So that's a lot of driveways to accommodate and deal with. There's also the property impacts. You can see on the screen here some landscaping that goes right up to the roadway. There's fencing. There's all types of stuff along this roadway. Kind of differs property by property. There's also a couple intersections, specifically with Nauset Heights Road, that we would look at as we develop these alternatives. And then the traffic flow, especially during the summer months, into and out of both Nauset Beach parking lots and how that would impact any alternative that the town wanted to move forward with. So this is kind of just a visualization of the alternative I described previously. And I know it can be a little bit small on the screen for people in the room, so these are up here as well, if you can see these better. But basically, it's the on-road bike lanes. So you end up with 10.5 foot travel lanes, on-road bike lanes, and then a grass buffer between the bike lane and the sidewalk on the south side there. This adds up to about 40 feet of total width from the back of the sidewalk to on the south side to the edge of the road on the north side. And then this is not obviously the entire 1.5 mile stretch. I don't want to bore you guys all tonight by just going page by page through 1.5 miles because they all look pretty similar to this, but this gives an idea of what we looked at for property permanent impacts, which again was anything off the existing roadway. We looked at scenic road impacts, the trees and fences, any utility pole relocations, any wall impacts. And then it's a little bit hard to see up here, and I apologize for that, but we also have the existing road lines on here as well. And then the alternative 3 typical section, which was that shared use path, again, squeezes down the roadway to 10.5-foot travel lanes with a 1-foot shoulder on the south side by that Cape Cod berm and a 1.5 shoulder on the north side. Again, trying to limit that widening on the north side to stay away from the utility poles. And then what we show here is a 3-foot grass buffer and a 10-foot shared use path. So again, going back to our Main Street feasibility study, which I had talked about, and Old Colony Way, which we've also talked to the town about, that shared use path, that 10 feet, that 3 feet, those are usually the minimum standards we try to hit for shared use paths. Those can be reduced even more to more of an 8-foot shared use path and getting rid of the buffer in kind of areas where the constraints are greater. So there is some wiggle room in that, but for the feasibility study, we started with that 10-foot and that 3-foot to try to give the most comfortable normal standard we would go with for shared use path design. And then again, like I said, this is just that same type of layout that we did for alternative 3. And then going back just to alternative 3 and alternative 2. So when we're looking at the bike lane alternatives, it ended up with about 9 utility pole relocations. And then 8 to 9 feet of widening on the south side of the road where that sidewalk would be going. And then for alternative 3 with the shared use path, we were looking again about 8 or 9 utility pole relocations and 5 to 6 feet of widening off the south side of the road. So for alternative 2, we could limit that 8 to 9 feet down to probably about 6 to 7 feet by shifting that further north a little bit as well towards the utility poles. But those are the general widening we were seeing on the south side of the road for both alternatives.
Excuse me, could you go back to the other picture and tell us what the colors are on that road?
Yes, so in these pictures, the blue was the permanent easements or the property impacts. So that's anything that was widening off that roadway. The green is any scenic road impacts, so to any trees or fences that was out there, so any shrubs, any landscaping like that. And then if there's brown on here, which there might not be, it's any scenic wall impacts. And then these yellow circles are some of the utility poles that would need to be relocated based on this initial layout. And that's where I'm at. Just a cute couple things I'll add to this as well, based off the meeting in November, is the high-level costs. We ran some cost estimates from November. So both alternative 2 and alternative 3, and again, these are very early at the beginning, so these are just based on a lot of assumptions. But for the bike lanes or shared use path, you're looking at about between $9 and $10 million for construction of those jobs for the 1.5 miles. And then for a sidewalk only, trying to maintain within the existing roadway as much as possible, that'd be about $4.2 million. How much? 4.2 for just the sidewalk. I will say in Brewster on Millstone Road, which is a project very similar to this one that we did with the town of Brewster, that's actually coming to a conclusion of construction this year. It's a similar length. They went with the shared use path with a buffer where they could. It ended up being about $10 million for construction. So those are the costs and those are the impacts that we have at this point. And again, like I said, these are not final designs by any means. We are very early in this process. It's a stopping point in just the feasibility study, which is before we really even get into design. And the intent of this meeting is really to try to get as much input from the town as possible to help us kind of refine this and move forward with this feasibility study so we can provide a document to the town and see where we want to go from there.
Well,
Not from the seats.
you got to come up to the mic, because it's being recorded.
All right. You want me to come up?
Yeah,
Okay.
While he comes up, if I could ask a question.
okay.
Just clarification, Josh. So the $9 or $10 million is the cost for alternative 2 or 3.
Yeah, they're
Right?
about the,
So
they're
the
very
4.2,
similar.
the 4.2 million is not something that you've drawn up yet.
No, that's just
like
yeah.
6-foot sidewalk, or how
Yeah,
wide of a sidewalk?
6-foot sidewalk
6
with
foot-
mill and overlay,
Okay,
basically,
yep.
of the roadway.
Excellent, thank you.
And then also, Josh, you mentioned Underpass Road in, not Underpass, Millstone in Brewster. That's like 2.5 miles.
Millstone
right?
is 2.5 miles. Yep.
Okay, and this is only,
Longer.
right,
Yeah,
47 utility pole relocations.
thank you.
which is what we're trying to avoid on this project.
Okay, come to the mic, please, and
Yeah.
state your name and where you
Yeah,
live.
I'm Paige Thompson at 173 Beach Road. Just concerning the cost that you just stated, does that include the cost of acquiring the land?
No,
Do you
that
have
is
a-
not the cost of
Do you have an
acquiring.
estimate what that would be?
I do not. It's very dependent on, there's a whole process the town has to go through that where you hire appraisers and get just compensation. So it differs based on the type of impacts, what's being impacted, and I don't have an approximate.
So that could be considerable too.
It could be.
Thank you.
So who's going to get up to the?
Okay, all right. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is, we're going, as you come up and have a question or a comment, we're going to try to board them so that we have something to refer back to. When we had a community meeting like this for Main Street, a lot of the concern was not just when we, after what we were going to be doing for a sidewalk or a walkway. It's, we have safety concerns now. So what things can we do now? We know that this is a very long-term project, and we know that it will be 5, 6, 7 years before we would even start on construction. And yet we also know that we have a lot of concerns for people presently walking on Beach Road. And so what we wanted to do is also take your ideas of how we could improve safety today, not looking at a major project going in the next 5 to 10 years. So on the board, that's what we're going to be doing, is noting what your comments are about what we want to do on Beach Road for a sidewalk or a multi-use path, and on the other one, what you would like us to be doing today ahead of any construction in the future.
Okay, so the mic is open, and you can walk up and, as I said, identify yourself, and then address what issue you wish to.
Hi, I'm David Herrick. I live at 163 Beach Road. And just a few things. One is I'm all for bike and pedestrian safety. I'm a walker and a biker on Beach Road myself. Just in terms of suggestions of safety, the cars seem to be the root of the problem, right? I think everybody agrees that that's the problem. But why aren't we addressing that? I mean, there's the easy one of speed limit, there are the speed bumps, but there are chicanes. Has anybody ever looked at those that slow down the traffic? They're all over Europe. There are, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, there's big graphics of bikes on the road right in front of you. I mean, there are a lot of different things that I think you could do to actually work on the issue, the core issue, which is the cars are going too fast. So that's just my one comment about safety. The second question I have is, who is this bike path for? Because if it starts at Beach Road, it's kind of just like for Beach Road residents, because there really aren't bike paths anywhere else in town. So I don't understand how you get there without the same safety concerns. I mean, Main Street has a few off and on sidewalks. Monument Road has none. 28, I don't know. I mean, Barley Neck, I guess maybe will be helpful for people in Barley Neck, but there aren't any bike road paths anywhere else. So I don't quite know where people are are they gonna park somewhere and then get on their bike there? So that's another question I have. The other thing is, this is a 3-month issue, and I know because I see it. And there's some traffic there in the summer. I don't think it's as much as everybody thinks, but there are walkers and there are bikers. In the winter, I can count on my hand how many people. I don't ever see a biker. There are some people that walk. So I'm a little concerned if we're thinking about $10 million for a 3-month issue. And I also just think that I really ask you all to just, at the end of the day, we'll all do something, and I'm confident of that, but keep the aesthetics of the town, in mind. This is an old, beautiful town, and Beach Road has existed for hundreds of years in exactly the way it kind of is today. And with all due respect, this kind of looks like something you'd find in Hyannis or maybe Boston or New York. Or Florida, and so I just ask that you keep the aesthetics of Beach Road and of Orleans in play, because it just doesn't do a whole lot, I think, in terms of the beauty of Beach Road. Anyway, thanks for all your work. I look forward to seeing how it goes, being part of it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, John Londa, 18 Barley Neck Road. I'm glad to see that the town is looking at this issue. We have a world-class facility in Nauset Beach, and we should be accounting for families that are renting nearby that need to go on foot down to the beach. So we definitely need the sidewalk. Of the 2 options, alternate 2 and 3, I think 2 makes the most sense to me. It segregates bicycles from walkers and bicycles from cars. And we all know that e-bikes are now another thing we're dealing with. And so separating them out makes all the sense to me. So I'm very supportive of this. And I think we should be moving forward with it before we have, something happen that we really don't want to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Evening, Scott Zanke, Doan Road. We're dead in the water before we move an inch further. This town does not take property through eminent domain. You're not going to have 44 houses say, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. Take my property." This is like me inviting you over as my next door neighbor saying, "Come look at my new design for a garage." And then you say, "Well, where are you going to put it?" "I'm going to put it in your backyard." You don't own the property. And if I was a Beach Road resident, I would be ticked that you're designing my property and you have no right to, you don't own it. Generally, when take the Sagamore Bridge, they acquired the property first, okay, which they're doing now. They haven't started construction, they haven't designed anything. They're acquiring the property. And you're already designing these people's front yards without their approval. And until this became public, a lot had been done, and nobody even talked to them. So that really gets my gall. As far as design, you're going to be these are in the perfect world. I've got 47 years experience in sidewalks, and you've got about 50 feet out there that's in the perfect world. I wouldn't even think about putting a curb in there, because that's going to be your bike lane. Your 3-foot gutter line there should have sharrows in it right now for the bikers to stay there. You can have for God knows unknown reasons, Beach Road drains. The drainage works there now. If you put curb in, you're going to have to reprofile the whole road, or you're going to end up with puddles all over the place. So you leave the curb out of it. Put in your 3-foot buffer, which will end up with your mailboxes, your utility poles, your hydrants, your catch basins, and then your 5-foot sidewalk with an additional 12 inches behind that. That'll be even with the back of the walk, so when you step off it, you're not going to twist an ankle. And from there, you're either going up or down in elevation to match the existing grades. Across from Nauset Heights Road, you'll probably be back some 30 feet. Each side of Brick Hill, you're going to be back a good 15 feet. And that's what is not coming out. It should be made public. We're not talking going back 9 feet on somebody's property. You've got driveways that either pitch down or come up to that existing roadway. You're going to make that even worse by setting the edge of the sidewalk back 10 feet and elevating it. You're give or take 5 inches off the grade of the road now. So you're going to be chasing driveways if possible. There's one driveway across the street from the old Mayo house that is very steep, 10 feet off the road. You're not going to chase that driveway back. You're not going to get those people out of their house. So as far as the quick stuff, which I've said before, downtown is loaded with bike sharrows in every single lane. They don't come over 28 coming down Main Street or coming down Beach Road. So nobody has any designation. Beach Road has 0 accident history. There hasn't been one pedestrian. So when we end up in a couple of months having a 2-tier tax system, we're basically building this for second-class citizens that show up for 3 months out of the year. So I think we've got better things to spend on. And when we're looking at 4 or 10 million, you haven't even scratched the surface of what it's going to cost to buy the properties. And that you'll be in court for another 20 years. If this town took eminent domain, we'd be building a firehouse now. It has significant costs in what it's going to cost us. So thank you for your time and thank you for what you've done.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Any other comments?
Yeah. My name is Joe Bradbury. I live on Mill Lane. The south side of Beach Road runs right along the Windswept Condominium Association. I'm extremely in favor of putting in a shared use lane with a buffer between the roadway and where the bikes and the people would walk, because I walk that road. I don't know if I've ever been seen walking that road. Sometimes I walk at dusk, but I do wear protective illumination. But I think it's extraordinarily important to get it done, because after someone is hurt or killed is way too late. And I feel insecure every time I walk out there. And I have to say, I think that the worst offenders are the landscape trucks. They seem to have 2 speeds, fast and stop. And I am so tired of feeling like I got to jump out of their way to not get hurt. So I am very much in favor of the project. The wider the area for the people who are trying to walk to the beach rather than drive their car to the beach, the better. And yeah, there's always a place where you have to start a thing. And that's like in the beginning of a project, yeah, it seems like that's out there by itself, but eventually it's not going to be all there is. There's going to be, the more walkways we have in this town, the better place it will be to live. And some of us do live here year-round and think of it not as a 3-month project, but or solution, but as a year-round, better quality of life solution to have this kind of a walkable town. Also, I have a question for the gentleman who had been involved in the project in Brewster. In response to some of the concerns that have been raised about how hard it all will be, you guys got it done over there. How'd it go?
I'll let Griffin actually answer that because he intimately was involved in that project.
I was the DPW director, and now I'm the town engineer and project manager in Brewster. So I helped with that project. When I started the project, there were saved Millstone Road signs all over the place. I'm not sure what we were saving it from, but we were trying to save it from something. Anyways, what we did was we went back to the drawing board. We had initially proposed, there was a misconception about the project, honestly. There was a misconception that it was a Mass DOT complete streets project, shared use paths on both sides of the road, sidewalks on both sides of the road, and it was not. We very specifically did not go through the Mass DOT process and go through a TIP project, transportation improvement project, because we did not want to be dictated on what we could do, or what we had to do in order to get funding, because it's very difficult to get get relief from the requirements that Mass DOT requires. So I think this is very similar to that, where we don't want to be held by a Mass DOT standard. And the Mass DOT standards, and Josh is very familiar with this, VHB does a lot of Mass DOT work as well. Those also, there's a lot of nomenclature that's associated with the Mass DOT type work. Shared use path versus sidewalk. You can build a sidewalk that people can still ride their bike on, probably going to be mostly kids and whatnot, but that's sort of what we came to in Brewster. We saw what the property impacts were. We wanted to incorporate a grass strip for the majority of that road because the residents prefer a grass strip because the grass strip allows you to have a softer curb or to have a Cape Cod berm and not a vertical curb. And the vertical curb was always is a concern of bikers. So we initially had, it was about 50-50, half and half grass strip and no grass strip. We eliminated a lot of grass strip to minimize impacts on people's property. Different road because it was laid out, albeit not very wide in some locations. So when we went back to the drawing board, we eliminated all permanent easements on private property. And also we buzzed the edge of the curb a little bit to soften it a little bit from a hard 90 degrees, just to help with potential tires. If you still hit that, you're probably going to pop a tire. But we did a number of things like that to try and address the concerns of the citizens. Having been through that process, and I guess speaking as a resident and a member of the committee, honestly, I think there's an opportunity to, and I think Josh mentioned it, to look at a little bit of a reduced width scenario. And sort of what I've thought about is if we could get away with 10-foot lanes, that would be great. 10-foot lanes, 2-foot shoulders, and a 6-foot sidewalk. And that would equate to 30 feet, which is where we're at right now. It would be great if we could add 3 to 4 to 5 feet to that to get grass strip in certain locations, because then you could eliminate the vertical granite curb. It just creates a little bit of a softer edge and also creates a little bit of separation for the pedestrians from the roadway. But I think that might need to be looked at on a sort of case-by-case basis, depending on what the impacts might be to those neighboring properties. And with the Millstone Road project, it was about 50-50, honestly, in terms of the folks that were happy to give up a portion of their property and other folks that were concerned about it. But as we near the completion of that project, and I've never experienced this in my public work, we've had a number of folks, several, half dozen or so, that were pretty adamantly against the project and have recently called town hall and said, I was against the project and I was wrong. Thank you for doing what you did. So I invite folks, you can't see it now because there's a lot of snow, but I think and I completely appreciate the comment about maintaining the character in the context of the town. That's a really important piece of where we live, and which is also why the Mass DOT way of things doesn't quite fit. We've got old country roads that were carriage roads before. They weren't meant for cars. So what we're doing is trying to implement the best multi-use that we can, but it might not mean we can do everything, because I think the property impacts become a lot. And as was mentioned, we don't get into what the cost of those is going to be. You have to go through an appraisal process. These are all very expensive properties. As we know, we've seen the property values in Orleans go up over the years. So I think that taking property would be another expense that we'd have to look at. So I think looking at a little bit of a reduced case scenario might behoove us, and would certainly limit the impacts, and I think still address a lot of the concerns that people have. Thank you.
Thank you, Griffin. Yep, come up to the mic, please.
Yes, Charlie, yeah.
Charlie Carlson, 23 Doan Way in Orleans. I am strongly in favor of a project along Beach Road. I do see walkers regularly along the road, and I do have to take action to avoid them with regularity, and I know that they are unhappy by the conflict between cars and walkers as well as bikers on that road. To correct the record, I believe there was a serious accident on Beach Road several years ago, and people were killed. Not killed. I stand corrected. but seriously injured. And I agree with the speaker who spoke before that it is only a matter of time until there is a serious accident due to the conflicts during the summer months. Number two, I would say, I want to ask a question. Is this committee also examining the installation of a more comprehensive path from downtown to the Beach Road intersection?
Want me to speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we are. We have to divide it into two different projects. We have the Main Street project and the Beach Road project. The reason we have to do them separately is Josh kept referring to a laid-out road. Main Street is a laid-out road, and so on Main Street, the town, by deed, owns a minimum of a 40-foot right-of-way. And we are having that surveyed right now to determine exactly what our right-of-way is for Main Street from Route 28 or from Route 28 to Beach Road. But since Beach Road is not a laid-out road, we don't have that deeded 40-foot right-of-way. And so that's why it is taken separately. So there's two parallel projects. We have had one community meeting on Main Street. We'll be having another one in the March-April timeframe. So we don't want people getting them confused. They are two very separate projects, but they have to be. We can't do them together, even though it will hopefully at some time be one continuous sidewalk.
That was my understanding, and I thought it was important for folks here to hear that. Assuming there are two projects at some point, the value of a connection between downtown and Nauset Beach is undeniable. So many people like to access the beach by using the bike trail, and being able to come from the bike trail down to the beach or be downtown because that's where your hotel is or what have you, and being able to get to the beach via walking or biking seems to me a huge benefit to the town. And in terms of our efforts to make the town more appealing to visitors as time goes along, we know that we need more visitors in town for commercial purposes, among other things. So that is, to me, another good reason for conducting this project. I do not have Mr. Zenke's experience with design, but I have confidence that VHB, who I know is extremely experienced in this area, can design something that may be less than alternatives 2 or 3, but could accommodate Mr. Herrick's desire to have something that reflects Orleans, and I certainly support that outcome. With respect to what we can do in the near term more immediately to increase safety, I don't have the answer. Experts like VHB do have the ability to suggest alternatives, which we're not here to hear about tonight, but I think would be a valuable subject for a future meeting in terms of near-term actions. We do need to do something immediately or as soon as possible to control the problems. And I don't think it's just a 3-month problem. I go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, and I often am coming into conflict with walkers coming the other way in the dark, and I don't see them until I am virtually upon them. I think that is a real problem, and anybody who's running or walking at night has that problem. So I urge you to focus there too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Jim O'Brien. My wife and I are at 37 Cedarland. And like most of you, we're driving Beach Road however many times a day, many times. And I would like to reiterate our concern for the most natural approach to this project. I believe if we want to take an example of the opposite, the South Orleans Rotary is horrific. And there's nothing on that, in my opinion, that has a Cape Cod character to it. And so if we want to look at extremes, that's what, in my opinion, what we want to stay away from. And I think the idea of natural berms and maybe even a first step of narrowing the roadway, eliminating one of the shoulders and making the other side of the road a wider shoulder would give us kind of an immediate answer without any movement of poles. Just a matter of laying out the roadway differently and restriping, in my opinion. So I just would encourage the board to look at the most natural approaches to this project.
Thank you.
The visibility point of view is big. We rarely can see a dusk or nighttime walker or biker until we're right on top of them. And if they had a little bit more room, especially on the south side there, to do that, and they could be over more, then that would eliminate our anxiety when we come across someone that we didn't see. I don't know if there's anything that can be done with lighting either. I didn't hear any mention of lighting, and I know I'm sure that's a sensitive issue as well, but any increased lighting would be an additional positive factor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Walter North. Thank you. Really, the courage of taking on a controversial project, which needs to be done, which should be done, but which is going to cause harm to a lot of private property owners if it's implemented, is something that is really admirable, because no one likes to create harm, but also no one wants to see someone be killed on that road. And like the woman who spoke earlier, I often walk on that road. And as Charles said and others have said, it is scary. It's size and speed. The trucks are bigger, they're moving faster, and I'm feeling smaller with every day. Maybe I don't think I'm going to be able to be here 11 years from now when you finally resolve this problem, but I'm glad to know that you're trying to. And so short-term kinds of things that I think could be done, I don't know if it's legal, but I think the residential tax exemption is a source of funding potentially, or thinking about congestion pricing for people who are accessing our beach if localities are allowed to do that. I'm not sure that I think they're not, but otherwise things like speed cameras, speed bumps, better lighting, as someone just suggested. Some communities try to get the flow of the traffic to be more curved, so that instead of having a straight road, the channel is curved. That might be something to look at because that would reduce speeds as well. And I think Dave mentioned some of the European strategies for speed reduction, which might be worth looking at. But long term, your willingness to have these open discussions, your willingness to listen for feedback, much appreciated. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I applaud you for taking it on.
Thank you.
Alice Thomason, 25 Blueberry Island Road. And I want to echo several people who, including Walter, who just spoke, commending you for taking on this, challenging project. One of the things I'm thinking about is we had overwhelming support to fund this feasibility study, which tells me there's overwhelming support for doing something. And I think the comments that have been made both by people who live in the neighborhood and others to minimize the difficulties to the property owners is absolutely critical going forward. So looking at some of the alternatives, and I know Griffin suggested that he's got some things in mind, and I know the committee's discussed some other options to make, a natural as natural. a byway as we can to minimize the impact to property owners, but to absolutely create something that will improve the safety and the ability for people to walk safely through that area. For short term, I didn't know, but I believe Josh referenced that some of the properties have kind of overgrown their boundaries into the public way. So I would absolutely recommend that we tackle that immediately. An example that really is bothersome on Main Street is that there is a sidewalk, as many of you know, on the north side, but property owners who have let their privet hedges and things encroach on that make it absolutely impossible to use. So I would like to see that kind of thing take place to improve sight lines, improve, the shoulder, and just open it up to more people. But let's remember that the funding for this study was an overwhelming support at town meeting. I don't have the numbers in my head anymore, but it was significant. Thanks a lot for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that you've got hands on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Paige Thompson again. Thank you for putting up with all of us. I think there's another issue. You talk about safety, and let's get that elephant out of the room. Yes, there was an accident there, a serious accident. An individual blacked out and drove across the lines and hit people. That was over 15 years ago. Now, what I would urge you all to do is to look at the facts and the data. Look at the data from bike paths, multi-use paths. You look at them just in Orleans. Compare them to what's going on Beach Road in the last 5-10 years. You will see an astounding difference between the number of accidents where you have shared bike paths, where EMT has been called. And I would ask you to just make sure when you go back, you look at that, because safety is important. And remember that there are 46 crossroads, driveways coming in and out. And we all know bikers can go up to 20 miles an hour down those hills. Can you imagine trying to pull out of your driveway and a biker comes by? Just remember that. And when you look at alternatives, take that into consideration. I understand, I live on Beach Road, the problems of walking and the paths. I wholeheartly agree that there should be some edging and trimming back because it's overgrown on some areas. The town should regain that space, and the trees should not be allowed to overgrow the road. But I really have an equal amount of concern about safety if you put a multi-use path with bikes, particularly, with all the driveways and what you're creating. So look at the data. Just look at the data. And I think a lot of the ideas about speed limits and maybe slowing it down would be all a good idea. Speed bumps, all a good idea, short term. But that's what I would say. And again, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing on this. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I do one more before we go internet?
Okay, we have someone online. Is that Kate?
Should I wait?
Yeah, if
Yes,
you
hi.
don't mind.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I echo my others' comments and appreciate all the work and time you've put into this. And also, I'm glad to hear that there will be other community meetings on this with hopefully more notification given to residents. I only found out about this meeting via a Facebook post. So I'm glad that there will be more opportunities for people to be informed and to invite their comments to this. I think everyone wants to improve the safety on Beach Road, but I also agree that we also need to look at maintaining the character of what is for me a neighborhood street. Sorry, Kate Collins, I live at 130 Beach Road, on the north side of the street. A couple questions have come up and other comments on trying to lessen the impact of taking property from some of the residents on the southern side of the street. And I appreciate that the committee is very sensitive to that. One comment that came up in one of your previous meetings was perhaps using bollards or flexible posts to delineate between a path and the roadway. I really hope that that is not a viable option. I think that would look awful on the street. It would change the character of the street. Speed bumps definitely would work, except I would certainly not want one in front of my home and listen to the landscaping trucks hitting that at 30 miles an hour and the noise that that would generate. The other questions I have on this is you talked about an option of a hybrid transition between a path or a sidewalk and then just going back to the road. I'm assuming that would be, again, to not take property from people, but I'm worried that on the area that first comes to my mind, which is the stretch of Beach Road between Brick Hill and Graymore. It's the hill if you're coming west to east. There's a pretty big hill on that entire side. And if you took land, you'd have to build a wall on there. And if you don't, that's probably one of the more dangerous stretches of the road. There are a lot of trees there. So I worry about that. And I know, again, I'm repeating myself about not wanting to take land, but if you were to have to take property from south side of Beach Road, would that have the impact of making some of those properties non-conforming lots? I think that's something important to look at if you're changing lot size on those properties. Again, I appreciate everything you guys have done, but I echo the comment earlier today that it seems like we're making a bike path from nowhere. It's an island. And I do worry about the cost. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
You have 2 more hands on Zoom.
Charlie Lake, 39 Beach Road. Former landscaper, so I'm feeling a little nervous standing up here. And I'm also known as the slowest driver in Orleans. So personally, I'd be cool. I think I'd be all right. But I used to live in fear driving my truck with a trailer on it on Beach Road, because you'd see a little kid this big wobbling behind his father, and I'm coming with a trailer, even going 15 because I'm slow. I would just smoke the kid if he fell over. There'd never be a chance. But I'm really safety now, which I find, and I invite anyone here to come sit on my porch Saturday and have a beer with me in the summers, any day, 4 o'clock, and watch the traffic. I don't understand why we can't have just like a cop car once in a while. They'll pull somebody over, like traffic enforcement. They go by my house 45, 50 miles an hour, big trucks now. As the other gentleman said, the traffic is certainly increasing in size. We've been there since 1990, and it's a totally different road now. Regardless of how it looks, the traffic is totally different there now. So I would just, in the short term, like we always stick that cop car down at the bottom of the hill with no one in it, but everyone knows that. It's like, what? It's like they blow by my house doing 45, 50, hit the brakes at the top of the hill, and then, on the way back, they know there's no one in it. And also, like the bikes coming out of your driveway, I thought was a good point also, because now I come out of my driveway, and they're coming up that hill, and there's no one there. I pull out to make a left. Someone's up practically hitting me because they're speeding on their phone, and they look up like, oh, my God. And like I feel like I'm at fault, but all I'm doing is there's no one there when I pull out. So I would just, maybe some local traffic, just put a cop there once in a while and actually give out a ticket. I think that would be, I would love that. Thank you.
You could sit there yourself and. that
Well,
might
I don't
help.
mind doing it for the town if they're willing to pay me, because I would stand there with a gun and a beer in the summertime. I would be all right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Online.
Oh, online is,
We have 2 people online.
Somebody else on?
I guess so. Well, Doug, do you want to speak? He's been on.
All right.
Doug Prentice, no.
And Heritage.
John Moran and.
Doug, you're muted, Doug.
Yep. Let the gentleman go, right? He's right there. Go ahead. I'll wait after he's done.
Okay.
Bill Weeble, 65, Keziah's Lane, member of the Orleans Historical Commission. I sort of raised this question, and it's about for economic development. So we hear a lot about quality of life as a return on investment. And I'm not sure that at the end of the day that between 10 and $15 million improves our quality of life. And so I would just ask that as we move forward with this project, and no one disagrees, as Paige stood up here, I went and I got a Freedom of Information Act on the number of incidents on the bike path from Brewster to Eastham and the number of accidents reports. And it's 130, on the bike path and 0 over the amount of time that I requested. And we all know that if it's dangerous, you're more careful. And if it's not dangerous and you don't think that there's an issue, you don't pay as much attention. And so there's no question that a sidewalk would enhance the ability of people to get to the beach. But I'm just concerned about 2 or 3 things. One, as a member of the commission, the stone walls, the character of the neighborhood, et cetera. We need to preserve that. It's one of the reasons people do come. It is the least expensive, highest return on investment that people come to this community and enjoy it, along with the beach. And I'm not sure that adding a sidewalk will improve the return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else was, okay.
Doug?
Doug, do you want to speak?
Oh, sure, yeah. I'll go, that's fine. I look at this as a situation of crisis planning. 10 plus years ago, the town recognized there was a need.
I'm sorry, look.
Oh,
Go ahead, Doug.
okay, I wasn't sure who was on
Yeah.
there. I look at this as a situation of crisis planning. Something's going to happen someday. Something's going to happen, and I don't agree with one of the speakers. It's a 3-month issue. It's not. It's a year-round issue. The town, in its ultimate wisdom, 10 plus years ago, conducted a feasibility study to find out, what can we do, what it would cost, what are the impacts of sort of accommodating all users out there. Okay, we in New England don't like change. If I had my way, I'd still be driving my 1970 Volkswagen. All right, we just don't like change. But something's going to happen, and then when something happens, then you're all of a sudden pushed into a mode to sort of make some improvements out there. I've got some questions, I think, for the consultant. I know those are probably order of magnitude estimates, but I didn't hear anything about retaining walls, hydrant relocation, drainage, property modifications, number one. So if you could sort of get into that. And number two, there's many people here who probably don't know what a laid out road and a non-laid out road is. So if you could actually speak to that and let people know what's involved and the time frame and how much that would cost to make it a laid out road to proceed with the project. Because obviously if the road's not laid out, you can't do anything right now.
So for your first question, the cost, It is a high-level cost estimate at this point. Obviously, we haven't really started design yet. But as part of those high-level cost estimates, we do make general assumptions for drainage modifications to the roadway. As was pointed out before, if we're adding curb, we would need to add some sort of drainage modifications. We would have to go through the environmental permitting process. So those cost estimates do include that $9 or $10 million. That number includes assumptions for walls, assumptions for drainage, assumptions for driveway reconstruction, assumptions for any water hydrant relocations. It doesn't include. It includes an assumption for utility pole relocations as well, because there's a pretty standard cost associated with those based on projects that we've done previously. So that $9 to $10 million does include a lot of that information. What it doesn't include, getting to your second question, is property acquisition costs, because those are very specific to a location by location, town by town, property value equation that people go through classes and get their licenses and understand that I am not able to comment on. But sometimes if you've done in projects previously where the town has taken properties, you can get like an estimated square foot value, but I don't, it just is very variable location on location. For the laid out versus,
Do you have a number, like number of retaining walls, number of hydrants relocated? You guys must have that to come up with your cost estimate, right?
we have a general assumption for it. I don't have the exact number of hydrants or retaining walls, but I do know we had an assumption for retaining walls along this place. I know there was a couple mentions of hills going up and steep slopes going down. When we looked at this back in January of last year, we took note of those locations, and any widening, especially to that south side, we identified those as possible wall locations and included that cost in that preliminary cost estimate.
So can you explain and I remember too, George, correct me, I think the estimate originally years ago was a little over $1 million to do, I think, the shared use path sidewalk situation and really not touch the road. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right, but the time has gone by and inflation has blown that number out of the water.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. So things obviously change and things are more expensive as time goes. And if the consultant, if you could explain the layout process, laying out a road to people, many people don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so generally on the town owns public right of way on most roads, and to lay that out, a professional surveyor would go and set bounds, which can take many different forms. The most standard one that you'll see is like a concrete, it looks like a square of concrete with a little hole in the middle that's a pin. And those are laid out along the roadway to establish monuments of where the town owns on each side of the roadway. And then the town can make adjustments for public good within that right of way. When you get into communities like on the Cape or more suburban communities where Griffin mentioned, these were not roads built for cars originally, they were built for different features. You don't always have that survey monumentation to actually lay out the road. So lacking that survey monumentation, town solicitors and lawyers make rulings on ownership, and the state has also made kind of rulings that when you're lacking that monumentation, when you're lacking that layout, the town owns from the pavement line to the pavement line, and anything outside of that would have to be actually laid out and taken by the town and establish that monumentation, establish that public ownership.
Do you have any idea how much that would cost and how long it would take?
I don't.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Peter. By the way, I was here at the beginning, so I've been here the whole time.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Thanks,
one more
Doug.
comment on that. That would have to be done by the vote of the select board to go ahead and do that, to do an order of taking, to do the layout and then do the order of taking afterwards.
And of course, the town meeting has to approve any acquisition or disposition of real property.
Thank you, George. Teamwork.
Hi, my name is Molly Avalar, and I'm a resident of Orleans and also own the commercial property. My business Adorn resides at 211 Main Street, so just before Beach Road, across from the post office. And I'm all for, something down Beach Road, Main Street, connecting shore to shore. We have the bay side, and the ocean. But being where our business is located, we're there almost every day. In the summer especially, we're looking out at Main Street, and it is scary. It is so scary. The safety is of the bikers, the walkers, the children. My mother and I, we sit there, and it's like, the amount of horns being honked, people pulling in the post office, brakes slamming, people almost getting hit just trying to cross the road where there is a crosswalk in front of our business, but no one stops. I will stand there when I'm going to the post office. Cars just go straight by. And there are signs. It doesn't seem to matter. A couple years ago, we brought up, maybe doing like a speeding, see what the traffic is looking like there. And they did put up a speed box thing or whatever to collect data. And I don't really know what, ended up happening with that. But traffic needs, at least like that Beach Road stretch down to like Federated Church, people go so fast because it is straight. And if we're talking about like safety now, that's definitely an area to look at and how we could slow it down there a little bit. And I'm not sure what I think it's like 30 is maybe the speed limit there. Like that's pretty fast for like that little corridor. So maybe just like lowering it a little bit or putting some kind of bump in or something. Maybe honestly, like I walk sometimes over Barley Neck when I partly stay at my shop and walk down to the Barley Neck for an event. It's sketchy to get over there because there's no, like I'm walking along the edge and it doesn't matter which side you go on, but there's nowhere to cross. And if there was even, I don't know that anyone would see you. So it's like, especially in the, the months where it's dark at 4:30. East Orleans is also pitch black at 4:30. There's no street lights. It's as our business being there, 5 o'clock comes around and everyone's just gone because there's nothing, no light, nothing. And one other comment I want to just make about, the sidewalks in town in general. We're talking about in the next like 10, 20 years, all the housing that's being developed. And like we have new housing on Main Street and with the new, the way we can build up downtown. I would think we would want a really walkable community and want people from downtown to be able to walk down to the beach and be able to walk to the bay. So I don't see how, I think looking at it as a whole for our town, having sidewalks is such an asset. I mean, I live off of Monument Road and I would love to walk to work. I'm not going to walk to work regular. That's another scary road. But yeah, so I'm all in favor of sidewalks, but I think definitely figuring out some ways to help with the safety now on Beach Road, on that stretch of Main Street, is definitely really important. And I think there could be some easy thing. Even the blinking speed signs. I know there's some now by the Fair apartments that are, have the little thumbs up when you're going the right speed and you notice them. Something like that, even just going along. And I notice you don't see it for, I think like the way, like if you're next to that, the light doesn't like light up people's properties or whatever. So I don't know, just something to think about that wouldn't probably be as big of a cost to throw some of those up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get in?
Oh, yeah.
Ken Heritage, Freeman Lane off of Tonset. So I know about people who walk and ride when it's dusk and early in the morning. And I doubt that 1 in 10 wears anything that illuminates their clothing. So they're essentially just wearing camouflage. So there's another action to all this. It needs the people who are walking and riding to take some responsibility and do what is right. If you go and look up to Beach Road now and you look up towards the top, there are signs saying which side of the road you should walk on. They're just ignored mostly, like they are around the rest of town. We've got all this protection at the corner of Old Colony and Main Street, and I'm there multiple times a week.
And that is just totally ignored. And I have never seen a policeman issue a ticket to anybody. And it's the same as all of the crosswalks on Main Street. I think there are 5 of them. You stand down there some sunny afternoon and you'll watch less than 50% of the people who cross the road use them. So you can do all these things, but unless the people who are using it do it properly, it isn't going to make any difference. And as for the safety issue, there hasn't been an accident where anybody's been injured up on Beach Road since about 2015. But look at other places, and I did a study of this over a year ago, or about a year ago. There have been numerous accidents on Main Street between 28 and Cranberry. There have been numerous accidents in all the parking lots, numerous accidents on Route 28, and nothing seems to be done about these things. But we want to spend $10 to $15 million correcting Beach Road, which doesn't have any accident history, except for many, many years ago. So I think we need to reprioritize some of this stuff. There's no way this will pass at $10 to $15 million. And besides that, I'll be long gone by then anyway, so it won't matter to me. But looking at what the town needs, it's not to go into all of this stuff. You lay out in the picture that the consultant showed, it shows all the grass verges. Who's going to pay to mow those every day? I mean, we're looking at things that don't bring anything to add to our welfare or our economic benefit. We're just spending money, and we can't continue to do this in this town. So I suggest you find a way to do it without impacting people's property or forget the thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Carl Trevisan. I'm Scott Zenke's neighbor and Charlie Carlson's neighbor on Doan Road. There's a lot of good points made tonight. I think one of the things that was just brought up is we have to be careful about trying to legislate common sense. We see a lack of that, particularly during this summer. And I think the issue with people not giving right-of-way, not stopping at crosswalks, we have people from all over the country that come here and they're not familiar with our laws, just go to the traffic circle on a Saturday. The bike path was brought up, and I think that we need to keep that paramount, because if you've ever ridden the bike path during this summer, and I did it years ago and I gave up, you have bikes, you have scooters, you have stroller pushers, you have inline skaters, and you cannot get by an inline skater. They just cover the whole road. And a myriad of those things. We are now going to have electric scooters and electric bikes, and as we all know, they go fast. And that's not going to go away. It's going to increase. In the common sense area, I see people riding, and it's their right. Everybody has the right to do things. I see people riding on Beach Road, mom's in front, dad's in back, and the precious little baby is in this carriage, little trailer, right at bumper level.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me, but people have the right to do it. And I think we have to keep in mind what is going to happen if this becomes a mixed-use facility. It's going to have bikes and all of these other things. I think it can get really dangerous. I did make a suggestion to the Public Works Department in writing a few months ago, and I told them they didn't have to respond to me, but on that corner where these young women were hurt, going down to Nauset Beach, near the intersection of Nauset Heights Road, my understanding, and I wasn't there, so I don't have any substantial information, is they were walking 4 or 5 abreast in the middle of the road. They're right, of course, and I feel badly for everybody that was involved. But that corner is a blind corner. And when I turn into Nauset Heights Road to go up to my road, I do this going around the corner because I can't see. And I suggested that maybe that corner as a beginning could be cut. So as you approach that area, maybe where the ship's knees is, you can see what's coming. Anyway, thank you, and thank you guys for all that you do.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, John Moran, 12 Pochett Road. I am a dog walker and I do walk on Beach Road. And traffic is very accommodating at times. If you recognize and thank people, people wave at you. It's a very friendly environment. Traffic is not aggressive. My concern is, are we ending up suburbanizing the town and destroying its bucolic character? I go down Underpass Road in Brewster and I'm appalled at what they ended up having. It has changed the character of that roadway. I don't know how much of it was dictated by the state DPW requirements, but I hope some consideration is given to maintaining the quality of life. In reference to bike paths, the mechanized bike paths, the electric bike paths, I note that there are a number of complaints on Facebook, a number of accidents, and how do you police it if you create a new dedicated walkway or pathway or bikeway to separate people, bikes, and mechanized bikes? I'll be brief, and that's it. Thank you for your courtesy and your patience. Good night.
Okay, thank you. Any others wish to speak? Yes.
I've lived year-round in the neighborhood of,
Could you tell us who you are, please?
what?
Could you tell us who you are?
Oh, Jennifer Budrick. 8 Beach Road is my business. I live just off of Main Street as well. And I've been here for a very long time. I walk, I bike, I drive to the beach an obnoxious amount of times per day. I used to bike up to Wellfleet frequently. And now with the traffic what it is, it's so treacherous on Main Street going through town that I drive my bike over to someplace where it's safe. I think that a lot of people want to do what they want to do, and as Carl Trevison says, that's their right. But if you bought on a country road that has a very narrow side to it and you want to walk safely on the side, maybe you should have bought on a different road. But that brings me to 2 other points that I have. One is that I asked at another Bikeways meeting maybe a year or so ago where people are supposed to park. And I was told that people would park on the side roads. So now people are flying down Beach Road. You've got the landscapers, sorry, Charlie. You got the landscapers who now, for whatever reason, and I live with one, it's now okay to pull up to your customer's job and not even put 2 wheels on their property. So you're in fact stopping in the road. So now you've got people going around the landscaping and other work trucks on both sides of the road. And you're telling people that if they want to use this bike path, that they can also park on the sides of those roads. It doesn't work. It just, there's not the room. I've taken pictures of cars parked on the side of both Cedarland, Brick Hill. It's laughable. You can't do that. And if you do allow that, what you then have also is people getting in and out of their cars with their kids, opening doors. You know, Johnny's got to use the bathroom, so he's squatting behind somebody's tree. You know, somebody's hungry, they're dropping stuff out of the back of their car. They've got coolers, they got the doors open again. Now you've got the landscapers slaloming around the other landscapers and the kids and the families who are leaving their trash in people's front yards. That doesn't make any sense at all. So unless somebody has purchased a large parcel of land to allow free parking to now get to Nauset Beach, I don't understand the logic there. I own a business on East Beach Road, and when I take a right to go home, I would say probably 70% of the time, I look and nobody's there, and then I pull out into the road and somebody's right on my butt. And it happens so frequently. And the thing is, no traffic is being addressed here. The empty cop car at the end of Brick Hill Road is just the laugh of the town. What is that all about? How about, I don't know, you at least put a person in it. That's a start. Maybe have one of those like bike cops or somebody who's doing their field work for the police academy. Have a presence on the road, aside from Charlie. The other thing, I'm surprised I haven't heard this brought up at all, but we've spent the last 10 years, aside from making Nauset Beach parking lot look like the Hyannis Mall, the amount of money that's gone into that and all the technology to get everybody's cars, identified as you pull in. I'm going to digress. Why not do that on the road? If you're going 90 down Beach Road, some technology takes a picture of your license plate and you're fined. That's just to do nothing and then complain about the road being unsafe doesn't make any sense at all. Especially we've probably been going close to 10 years with the empty cop car joke. But the thing that I haven't heard brought up is the mall we now have down at the beach. That's to take money from people for the town. So now you're going to offer free parking on the side roads for people who don't want to pay to get to the beach. You're also going up against having just stickered most, if not all, of the landings in town, because we have that amount of people in town now parking everywhere, trying to get to beaches. I don't know who are we trying to pull to town? It's already one of the most unaffordable towns in Massachusetts. People want to live here. People moved here with Beach Road being exactly the way it is. People dream to live in this town. So it apparently isn't that big of an issue. One accident in the 45 years that I've lived here. Sure, widen the road a little bit, have some cops out there, straighten out the road at Nauset Heights Road. But to change the road instead of changing behavior is incredibly short-sighted. It's a beautiful road. That's why people come here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to respond to the parking comment. I've been on the committee for over a year, and to my knowledge, there's been no discussion about parking on side roads, and that's not the intent of any of the sidewalk. The sidewalk is intended to provide people safe access. I don't know that it's going to be a destination where people are going to be coming and parking on side roads. There are town bylaws that prevent certain types of parking on side roads that we just discussed yesterday at our meeting. And the police chief said, well, if there's parking on side roads that's illegal, call us, let us know. We'll be out there. So I just wanted to just make that comment. I don't know, previous to me being on the committee, I don't know if there's been a discussion about that, but I know there's no intention, and that's not our jurisdiction by any means to allow parking on any side roads.
I was told that at a meeting.
Any more comments?
Well, you did a great caricature of tourist treatment on the side roads.
What's that?
I said you did a great treatment of how tourists seem to be behaving on side roads.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's among the landscape treks too. It's like, it's a game out there with who's parking where and who's slaloming around who.
Right.
And you're creating an absolute nightmare of a situation. Look at what's going on the bike trail now. You're bringing that all over to Nauset Beach to allow people to not pay to get in. And trashing the side roads, which somebody on the Bikeways committee told me was the answer for where people would park. you're bringing a problem of monumental proportion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to take the mic? Yes.
Joe Bradbury, Mill Lane. I still want a bikeway. I still want a walkway. I still want to feel safe when I'm walking along Beach Road, and I wish I could walk along Beach Road more than I do now because I have pretty much said that is really dangerous. I gotta really want to do that walk to do that now. It's a danger to everyone who tries it, and I still want you guys to do what you're doing. I am so happy that you have done what you have done already. And I feel like, you know, hearing everyone's comments, and, you know, obviously people are never going to all agree on everything, but you guys are doing a great job. And I am very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Nancy Wren, I live on Countryside on the corner of Beach Road. I just have a question. This has been a great conversation, and a lot of things have already, good points have been made. Two things. The Main Street project, is that in line before this one? I feel like we can learn a lot from whatever happens there. And when I look at that picture, no offense to the people who are doing this great work, but that is not Beach Road. There isn't, I can't, I walk that Beach Road a lot. I watch everybody come back and forth. No, there might be 3 places in there that might look like that. That is, I wish there had been a picture of a winding road or something to give us an image of what we're going to get. The road is already narrow. We're just talking about, we just heard all these things about, we can't narrow the road. It's already hard enough to get by. They made the 4 feet go around everybody rule in Massachusetts. Do you do that when you go on Beach Road? Because it's really difficult to do it. So you either have to stop, or you have to wait until nobody's coming the other way, or you don't do it, and then you make the people upset. So we got a bunch, some things you just can't change there. We have changed some of the things that have happened on that road by changing the signage, and we talked about, it's not Beach Road's fault, it's the people not paying attention to the road. If you have a walkway on one side, they're gonna walk on the other side. They do that already. People don't walk facing the traffic. Some people do, and that really works well because at least you see what's coming at you. And half the people don't do that. So I think we can learn, like I said, from what happens on Main Street to see that's a straighter road, but there's lots of different curves and things like that, and see if it improves things, if it increases. More people drive on Beach Road than walk. More people drive on Beach Road than ride their bike. You can use the argument that says that's because it's not safe. You can also use the argument that more people drive. And we did build that huge parking lot for people to drive to the beach. And in the summer, many people don't lug their stuff. They've got coolers and kids and everything else. They drive to that parking lot. And that parking lot was built for a purpose. And I think we just have to see that what we can work with and we can. We don't want to make this, the more we talk about it, we make it more of an impact and less of an effective tool for helping us get people safely down the road. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last call. Okay, well, let me just say thank you very much. I mean, we've had a lot of really useful comments, everything from human nature to sewer placement and things like that. But this has been, for us, very useful input, and we will be having more of these as our thinking advances on what sort of suggestions to make to the select board or to Josh in terms of what his next assignment should be. So we will try to keep you all informed, and we hope to see you all back and even more people. But thank you very much for spending this time tonight to probe this issue. Thanks.
Just a reminder to adjourn. Folks, if you can hear me, just don't forget to adjourn.
Oh, okay, so yeah, the meeting is adjourned.
You have to vote to adjourn.
Vote to adjourn.
Oh, vote to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, votes?
Aye.
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 All right.